Denny Hamlin wins at Dover for the second consecutive season and walks away with $1 million. Welcome back to another episode of Talkin NASCAR. I'm your host, Andrew. Hope you all have had a great weekend. The All-Star race for 26 for the NASCAR Cup Series just wrapped up from Dover Motor Speedway. A very action-packed race today. Big win for Denny Hamlin, picking up $1 million to add to his pocket. Lots to unpack from this race. New format also being introduced for the All-Star race once again. New aero and horsepower package added to this race for the NASCAR Cup Series in an effort to improve the racing from Dover, which has been a thorn in the next-gen car's side for its entire duration, all the way back since 2022. And I must say, the racing did improve. We'll get to all that just a little bit later. Let's go ahead and start by talking about today's winner, Denny Hamlin. Denny Hamlin bests Miles the Monster at Dover Motor Speedway once again for the second consecutive season. He walks away from Dover Motor Speedway with another Miles the Monster trophy. A Miles the Monster trophy covered in silver, a special occasion for the All-Star race, which was a really cool trophy. But in this race, Denny Hamlin was one of the big favorites heading into this weekend. He won this race last year. Joe Gibbs Racing has been very good on these concrete racetracks. Go back to Bristol, where Ty Gibbs, his teammate, picked up his first career victory of his NASCAR Cup Series career, first victory of the season for him as well. This was a track that Denny Hamlin was primed and expected to contend at in this one, and we were right to believe that. He was very good in practice, and despite spinning out on his outlap in qualifying in the Mechanics Pit Crew Challenge yesterday at Dover, he still managed to come away with the pole. He was the best driver in both Segment 1 and Segment 2 today, had the best average finish in those two stages combined. That got him the pole position for the third and final 200-lap segment of today's race. And while it did look like Denny Hamlin maybe would not have an easy shot of getting this, as his teammate of Chase Briscoe, his own car of Tyler Reddick in the 45 car was also up there in contention. Connor Zilisch, the NASCAR phenom driving the 88 car for Trackhouse Racing, was putting on an incredible performance here today at Dover as well. Eric Jones for Legacy Motor Club was having an incredible day as well. It looked very competitive out there at the front of the field, and it did not look like Denny Hamlin was going to have an easy road to victory in this one. No pun intended there. But after we had a caution midway through this this closing third segment of today's race, Denny Hamlin was able to get past Chase Briscoe, who had a lot of speed today. This was a track that Chase Briscoe and team looked to possibly rebound after a very difficult first half of the season, looking at this exhibition race as a potential turnaround, and we definitely got that from Chase Briscoe in this race. But however, Denny Hamlin was able to maneuver and outrun the number 19 car of Chase Briscoe and James Small. All in all, Denny Hamlin was the best car on Saturday. He had the best pit crew on Saturday, it seems like, to get him that pole position, and he had the best car all throughout this entire race today. Didn't have a single scuff on his car despite all the wrecks that happened in this race, which we'll get to in just a moment. And the new format, he was still able to adjust and maneuver his way and to the victory and $1 million. So Denny Hamlin and Chris Gale and company ran an impressive race today, even though it was an exhibition race. Through all the chaos, an absolute masterclass of a race today for Denny Hamlin and company. Let's shift gears again real quick to talking about the other parts of the race that made this a very interesting one. Let's start by talking about the format, which I think is getting a lot, not as much attention as we all should be giving it. For one, I was very skeptical of how this format would do this weekend. I was not a humongous fan of getting rid of the All-Star Open and instead having it all combined into pretty much one race with 3 different segments acting as their own races, quote unquote. I was just not sure how it would go. I wasn't confident that it was going to be, very efficient. and I wasn't even confident that it was going to be, I don't know, very entertaining. I think I was wrong though. Out in segment one, let's start with that. All 36 cars out on track here at Dover. Denny Hamlin leading the way. We complete one lap, all good. But coming into the second lap, heading off into turn one, there's a humongous crash, a 9-car pileup into turn one. It was all caused by Ryan Preece, who was 3 wide coming off of turn four, coming across the start-finish line with Todd Gilliland and Kyle Larson down below him, both of which Preece and Larson trying to work their way up through traffic. Todd Gilliland was fading back, just did not have a car to contend, put them in the 3 wide scenario, which doesn't often work at Dover. Ryan Preece looked like he thought he was clear, came down across the nose of Todd Gilliland, ended up spinning himself out, sent Gilliland and Larson back up the racetrack, and the field just completely unwound from there. 9 cars involved. Chase Elliott was involved. Daniel Suarez was involved. Michael McDowell was involved in that one as well. Chris Buescher was involved. A lot of big names in this one. And Ryan Preece himself backed in the outside wall very, very hard. Actually, ruptured the fuel tank, it looks like, destroyed the rear end of his car. Humongous fire out the right and, the left rear end of that car. Humongous fire, big flames. Ryan Preece was able to climb out of the car okay. That put us under a red flag for cleanup. But that chaos we saw at the beginning of this race because of this new format would be seen throughout the rest of this race. And this format created that chaos by having some of these big names starting at the back in this humongous field, because we had guys like Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, Ryan Preece, Ryan Blaney even as well, all humongous and really good drivers at the back, former champions, and yet they had to start at the rear of the field because they made mistakes on pit road. They also had a poor qualifying lap. Meanwhile, some other of these other teams, like Todd Gilliland, for example, Zane Smith, had incredible pit crew performances. Zane Smith's team even won the Mechanics Pit Crew Challenge and started up towards the front of the field, earning that team a couple grand in that event. So you had this already almost inverted field at this point with so many good drivers at the back and some, not as good cars and drivers and teams up towards the front, which would cause a little bit of chaos on a very narrow 1 mile track that has exceptionally fast speeds. And it was a thing that was talked about by Clint Boyer and Kevin Harvick on the lead up to green broadcast, that this new format with all these big names starting out towards the back would create an interesting situation in the opening laps. And they were pretty well right with this scenario to open up the race. And then as well, coming towards the end of this first segment, lap 73, we would get another one, this time with different tire strategy, because we had a caution earlier in the segment for Carson Hosvar, who had a right side tire issue that put us under caution. And we had another restart where some drivers decided to stay out and not pit and take tires to get some track position, mostly some open cars that did not have a guaranteed entry into this race or a guaranteed spot into the 200 lap main event, and we're trying to get the best finishing position as they could to rack up some results for segment 2 and potentially where they could get another good finish and potentially maybe even qualify for the all-star main event. But anyways, on lap 73, Riley Herbst, one of the drivers that decided not to pit, was fading back, did not have a tire advantage, had unequal tires to the cars around him. He was fading back very, very quickly, ends up getting turned in front of the field, just like in the beginning portions of this segment, collected a bunch of cars, including Chase Elliott, which would actually end his day. The damage was too much for the team to repair, even in time for the main event. So Chase Elliott, who had a guaranteed spot in the 200 lap main event, would not be able to compete, which meant NASCAR would have to find a 8th driver to add to the field as well for the 200 lap main event. But once again, this format with its interesting caution placement created very interesting tire strategy, which unequal strategy, unequal tires creates a little bit of chaos out there on the racetrack. So we'd see that in stage 2. In stage 1. In stage 2, we would see something similar with AJ Allmendinger and as well, I believe it was Brad Keselowski potentially. It was Eric Jones and AJ Allmendinger decide to stay out in front of the field, take the front row, and not take tires, which meant they would be gambling on that to get some really good track position and to transfer into segment 3 of today's race. They both did fade very quickly, but it was a little bit more organized and it wasn't as abrupt. They were able to kind of hold their track position for a little while, but they were gradually fading, and they were just not able to hold on to it very effectively. But after both the segments, with Hamlin winning segment 1 and Tyler Reddick winning segment 2, uh, all the drivers that were remaining out in the race still, guys that had guaranteed spots in the open, all advanced, with Connor Zilisch, Eric Jones, Alex Bowman, Michael McDowell, Ty Dillon, Noah Gregson, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., and AJ Allmendinger all advancing, racing their way in, with Daniel Suarez also receiving the fan vote. Ross Chastain in segment 2 as well will get caught up in a crash with Brad Keselowski. Ross Chastain kind of pirouetted down the back straightaway extremely hard, damaged his car severely, and was not able to continue. Keselowski was able to continue and repair his car. He had a guaranteed entry as well, but was able to continue. So that's why Suarez was able to get the fan vote. He was somehow able to continue with a lot of damage to his number 7 Chevrolet for Spire Motorsports. And for the rest of segment 3, we didn't necessarily see any major crashes. The field was reduced to 26 cars. They were all kind of got spread out over the course of this event. The caution at lap 75 of that 200 lap main event definitely mixed up the strategy a little bit. We saw in this race some drivers having to pit for damage, some other drivers gambling with tires as well. In this one, drivers need to come down pit road to get fuel. It definitely spiced up the strategy a little bit, which was another element that was added to this one. And some other factors in this race as well that made the racing at Dover, especially with this next-gen car, really seem a lot better than it had been in previous years, were the increased horsepower to 750 horsepower, the new aero package with a reduced splitter, and as well the new tire compound that Goodyear brought to this race. A softer tire compound had a lot of tire issues today, made drivers both have to try to drive very aggressively while also trying to manage their tires, which was a very big thing that a lot of them had to do. We saw numerous tire failures when it came to Joey Logano, who actually wrecked out of this race, out of that 200 lap main event. Ty Gibbs had several tire issues with the right front of his car. Carson Hocevar had a tire issue in this one. And then you also just saw the normal wear and tear of this racetrack. Like Kyle Larson, he had a power steering issue on his car. He had already suffered major damage in segment 1 of this race, spent the entirety of segment 1 and segment 2 in the garage, came back out for segment 3 with a repaired race car, but was not able to contend fully. Same with Ryan Blaney and Bubba Wallace, all who had suffered damage. They had to return to the garage, but were able to come back out on track to compete in the rest of this race. That's another thing with the format. It truly made this race a race for survival, which was very interesting as well. Really showed you who the best drivers, I would say, of the day were, i.e. Hamlin, Briscoe, Eric Jones, guys that had speed in their car and also kept it clean. That's another good thing about this format. It really made this a race of survival, but also encouraged aggression in this one. But getting back to the horsepower and aero packaging and the tires, it all created a very interesting situation for the drivers. They had to manage the tires. They could run really, really hard. They had the ability to do that with the new horsepower and aerodynamic package. Drivers were searching all up and down the racetrack, the high lines, the low lines, the middle lines as well, to search for any grip they could of clean racetrack from all the rubber that had just been laid down this weekend from the O'Reilly Series race, from the Truck Series race, from the earlier segments in this race. It was a lot of laps that was ran today. It was 350 laps. That's a lot. So it truly was a big challenge for these drivers to continue searching for lines and find the right one with the most grip, while also trying to survive against all the other competitors from just all the chaos and carnage this new format made. It made for a really entertaining show, which I was not really expecting here at Dover, but I was pleasantly proved wrong. I thought this was an amazing show, absolutely, from Dover, with its great racing and the format creating a lot of action itself. So those are pretty much all of my thoughts about this race. Let's go ahead and take a look at the top finishers from this one. Denny Hamlin led the way, picked up the victory, started on pole, finished its first, had the fastest lap out of anyone here today as well. His teammate of Chase Briscoe in second place started on the front row with him to begin this main event. Eric Jones transferred his way in, ends up in third place. A pleasant surprise here today from Eric Jones and Legacy Motor Club. A Toyota 1, 2, 3, and then two Chevrolets with Austin Dillon. Another good race after a pretty strong showing last weekend at Watkins Glen. Connor Zilic, after coming up very, very short to his first NASCAR Cup Series victory at Watkins Glen last week, ends up in fifth place. It looks like Connor Zilic had a really good car to potentially contend, but had several pit road mistakes that set him back. But he had the pace to move forward and had the potential to even contend with some of the big names like Denny Hamlin and Chase Briscoe, because he was matching their lap times in this one. So best weekend so far that we've seen from Connor Zilic, and even Trackhouse as a team. Shane Van Gisbergen looked pretty solid. Ross Chastain looked pretty solid as well. Good overall weekend for Trackhouse. This could be a race weekend that they need to rebound like Chase Briscoe as well. Austin Cindric, after having a pretty solid performance last weekend at the Glen, ends up with a sixth place finish. William Byron, who didn't have any of his teammates pretty much out there with him besides Alex Bowman, ends up in seventh place after starting in fourth. Had a pretty strong showing here today. Michael McDowell in eighth place. Alex Bowman ends up in ninth place. At one point in this race, he was the top running Hendrick car in this race when William Byron had been set back in traffic due to pit road issues as well. And then Brad Keselowski would round out the top 10. Noah Gragson, shout out to Noah Gragson, who in 11th, who for the first time, I believe, in his career, actually didn't have to rely on the fan vote to make the All-Star main event, was able to qualify his way in on pace in the two opening segments. So shout out to Noah Gragson. Same thing with Allmendinger. Dover, one of those tracks that he is very successful at. His teammate of Ty Dillon as well, who ends up in 15th, 2 laps down. Both of them ran very, very well today and were able to both advance their way in through the opening two segments on pace and did not have to rely on fan votes, which is very surprising because Calling Racing, as we all know, they are running Rams in the Truck Series right now and have essentially been cut off from sim data that Chevrolet would usually provide them. So Calling Racing on their Cup Series operation side of things, they are completely alone out there. And it's very impressive to see both Allmendinger and Ty Dillon getting top 15 runs. Like, Ty Dillon was even up inside the top 10 in this race, which is very, very impressive from Ty Dillon. So shout out both the calling cars in this one. Ryan Blaney ends up at 13th, Hocevar in 14th. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., another guy for Hayek Motorsports, just got his new contract extension, ends up in 6th place. Kyle Busch looked like he had some good speed today, but I do believe had another pit road mistake, but he definitely had some pace today. He was like 4th fastest in practice, I believe. So Kyle Busch definitely had some speed under that number 8 car, but unfortunately, other factors took him out of it. Josh Berry was able to qualify his way in with a little bit of damage to his car, finished in 18th. SVG, another guy, finished in 19th. I believe he had some pit road issues as well in this one. Bubba Wallace, Daniel Suarez, all finished in 20th and 21st. They were still running. And then Tyler Reddick, Christopher Bell, Ty Gibbs, Logano, and Kyle Larson, all those guys ended up having some issues and damage from both this event and the two opening events. Larson, Gibbs, Bell, or I think it was Larson, Bell, and Suarez. They all had some damage. Same with Bubba Wallace, Josh Berry. They all had damage from the previous two segments, and Logano and Ty Gibbs all suffered some damage in this race as well. Gibbs had numerous tire failures. Bell had some issues in this one. Tyler Reddick had to retire early from this race, even though he was off to a really phenomenal start in this one. Looked like he might be a contender for the win. Ended up having a power steering failure in this one. So tough break for Tyler Reddick in this race as well. But there you go. Those are your top finishers, the finishing results, excuse me, from today's All-Star race at Dover Motor Speedway. So with that all done here, let's move on now to the final segment of today's show, the race review rating. All right, so here we go with the race review rating for today's All-Star race at Dover Motor Speedway. And I'll say it once again about today's race. I was very pleasantly surprised by how entertaining it was. I did not think it would be, because with all the new kind of drastic changes it had, I was worried that it was going to be a little bit too complicated, especially for newer fans, kind of like me. I admit I was even still a little confused about it, even leading up to today's race. I finally figured it out and how it worked and how drivers would advance and all that. So I'm glad I figured it out, but that's definitely one flaw about it, is that It's a little complicated. It's not very simple, which I do think sometimes simpler is better. But in this case, I think with Dover being a new venue for the All-Star race this year, having a new format, I think it was actually a good success. I think it succeeded very well. The format I thought did very well. You saw some new names up towards the front of this main event. You saw Eric Jones, Austin Dillon for Richard Childress Racing, a team that has been pretty much irrelevant this entire season. Connor Zilic was up there. William Byron, who's had a down year this year, was in the top 10. Michael McDowell, Alex Bowman, who missed 4 races due to vertigo, was also up there. Meanwhile, the big names like Blaney was outside the top 10. Kyle Busch, a champion, was outside the top 15. And then Bubba Wallace, SVG, Reddick, Bell, Gibbs, Logano, Larson, some of the big names that have won races in the past, even as recently as this year, former champions, they were out towards the back. And guys like Chase Elliott, Ross Chastain, Chris Buescher, they didn't even make it into this main event. We didn't even see, Zane Smith, the Mechanics Pit Crew Challenge champion, his team, they didn't even make it as well. So, like, I feel like the overall theme of this race was a lot of newness, a lot of originality with this event. New venue, new format, new names towards the front of the field in this race, with a lot of the big names towards the back, which is what we kind of saw last week, too, which was very, very bizarre, by the way. It was more of that this week, which was very entertaining for an exhibition race. But of course, we also had to have the Cup Series, like the regular winners, regular contenders of Briscoe and Hamlin up towards the front of the field as well. So, of course, we had to have that as well. But regardless, overall, originality was, I feel like, the name of the game here today at Dover, which creates a fun atmosphere, I feel like, especially for an exhibition race. So, with that being said, I'm going to give this race an 84%. I thought the racing was very, very solid, especially for Cup Series Dover racing with the next gen car or the Gen 7 car. Hasn't always been stellar, but I feel like this year they might have actually figured something out with the tire compound and the aerodynamics package and the horsepower package as well. And I thought the format, it was executed perfectly. I feel like it put on an entertaining product, which was very, very solid. So let me know down in the comments what you thought about today's race. Should this format remain heading into next season? Should Dover remain the site of the All-Star race moving forward? I think that's a question that we can answer possibly in the next episode, so stay tuned for that as well. But that's going to do it for this episode, everyone. Hope you enjoyed today's episode from Dover Motor Speedway. Today's recap of the All-Star race from Dover Motor Speedway. So, again, let me know down in the comments what you thought about it. That'll do it for me, everyone. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next episode. I still don't know how to do these outros, but maybe I'll figure it out one day. I'll see you in the next episode, everyone. Have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you in the next episode.